Former President Jacob Zuma will have to hand himself over to the nearest police station within the next 5 days to begin his 15-month jail term. The Constitutional Court handed the sentence down earlier after finding him guilty of contempt of court. Zuma defied the court's order to appear before the State Capture Commission. The matter relates to his refusal to appear before the commission after losing in his bid for the chairperson of the commission, that is Raymond Zondo, to recuse himself. Zuma was also ordered to pay the costs of 2 counsel.
To Mr. Zuma specifically, that his contempt and contumacy is rebukable in the strongest sense. In determining the length of sentence, the majority has considered the unique circumstances of this matter, the nature of the breach, and the extent to which the breach is ongoing. Not only has Mr. Zuma failed to dispute the contempt of court, he has also failed to contest the degree of the contempt. Instead, he has aggravated it. The majority judgment orders an unsuspended sentence of imprisonment for a period of 15 months.
Well, for more on this story, I'm joined by SABC News senior political reporter Samkele Maseko. Thanks very much for joining us, Samkele. Of course, this is an example telling us as South Africans that no one is above the law, even if you're a former president. But what are the implications of this decision?
Essentially, the implications here is that the former President Jacob Zuma will have to hand himself over to a police station, whether here in Johannesburg or in Nkandla, where he is currently residing. I've just seen a tweet by his daughter, Duduzile Zuma, in saying that she has just spoken to her father, and they will be escorting former President Jacob Zuma to serve his term closer to home, which he will be probably opting to hand himself over to the Nkandla police station in escort style in Nkandla, where you'll also see MKMVA ushering the former president to serve his jail term. The Constitutional Court was scathing in saying this is a unique case in the form that former President Jacob Zuma, who still yields a huge political power in the country, has been scathing against the Constitutional Court and the judiciary in the country, saying that he's a threat to the constitutional democracy and to the judiciary in the Republic of South Africa, in saying that this is an unprecedented and unique case, and they have to set an example. The Constitutional Court did, in the majority judgment, consider giving the former president a punitive measure of a 2-year jail term behind bars, but it was later reduced to 15 months behind bars, which the former president has the next 5 days to hand himself over, failing which the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, and the Police Commissioner will then have to make sure that the former president is arrested and begins serving his 15-month jail term behind bars. It's going to be rather interesting because the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, a few months ago did go to Kwatakwadunuse in Nkandla to have some tea with the former president, to have some political deliberations with him. It remains to be seen whether he will effect the Constitutional Court ruling order in going to arrest his long-time comrade in the form of former President Jacob Zuma.
Samkele, what's your understanding of the unsuspended 15-month sentence? Does it mean that he has to serve the full 15-month sentence? Or if he serves, if he behaves within the next 3 to 4 months, he can get parole? What does it mean?
That term unsuspended is self-explanatory. It essentially says that the former president will have to go and serve that jail term. It is not suspended. He has to go to jail. He has to wear those orange overalls and serve the 15-month jail term that he has been given. On the issue of presidential pardon, I don't want to dwell so much into that because it's not yet happened, and it's not yet clear whether the former president will apply for that presidential pardon. Also, we don't even know if there is a loophole for that presidential pardon when he is behind bars. But essentially, the directive and the judgment has been handed down, and it is very clear. The former president has those 5 days to hand himself over. failing which the police commissioner, the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, have to make sure that he begins his jail term in a correctional services facility, which essentially means that the former president will have to be arrested. In a discussion we had earlier on during the course of the year in Nkandla with Jacob Zuma's eldest son, Edward Zuma, he said that they will simply lock the gates. The police will not have access to Nkandla. He will simply get a locksmith, lock the gate, and protect the private property and the private residence of his father, and the police will not have access in arresting the former president. We don't know if Edward Zuma still maintains that particular stance, but the political machinations within the governing party have been sent to a tailspin with now the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly its provincial secretary Mdumiseni Ntuli, who had said in an interview with our own colleague Anda Mhlongo in that province that they would engage the national leadership of the ANC in engaging with the former president to cooperate with the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which prompted that top 6 meeting that the former president had with the ANC, where he literally told them that he would not go to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, and the ANC top 6 leadership is being opportunistic in its engagement with the former president. So the former president has been in defiance overall of going to the State Capture Commission, particularly on that fateful day when the former president decided to walk out of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry.
So, Samkele, in terms, I had asked you earlier about the implications, and I meant that broadly, not just him going to prison, but in terms of the political implications, what does this mean at the ANC level? Does this mean that the so-called RET faction is going to be that much more marginalized?
Well, I can't say they're going to be that much marginalized, but what I can say is that the political machinations and the divisions will be exacerbated by this particular judgment of the Constitutional Court, because in politics, perception is the truth. And some are already saying that President Ramaphosa's government, an ANC president, has decided to jail a former ANC president and a former president of the Republic of South Africa. Yet those who committed crimes against humanity in the apartheid era have not yet been tried. For instance, we were celebrating the assassination of the Cradock 4 with the former president F.W. de Klerk, who had been in that particular council that ruled that the Cradock 4 must be sentenced to death. He's not been in any court of law, and he's not been tried for any crimes against humanity during the apartheid era, and he's freely roaming the streets of the Republic of South Africa and has a blue light convoy that he has with him, and the virtue that he is the last apartheid president of the Republic of South Africa and is a former deputy president of the Republic of South Africa in the first term of former President Nelson Mandela after the 1994 elections, where there were 2 deputy presidents, F.W. de Klerk and former Deputy President Thabo Mbeki. So politically, it does have a huge impact and a cloud over the presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa, as he will be viewed by the RET forces in the ANC as someone who jailed former President Jacob Zuma and the former president of the ANC, and has failed to jail those who committed crimes against humanity during the apartheid era. And the RET faction will use this particular issue of Jacob Zuma going to jail as a campaigning slogan, where he will be ushered and escorted when he hands himself over to a police station. So you can see those who are leading the REC faction, particularly those who had gone to support former President Jacob Zuma as he appeared in court at the local division of the High Court in Pietermaritzburg on those fraud, corruption, money laundering and racketeering charges that he faces over the arms deal, which also goes to court again on the 19th of July for that application by former President Jacob Zuma for the lead prosecutor of the state to recuse himself.
Yeah. Samkele, one last thing. I mean, I know you did mention, you articulated it very clearly that it would be mere speculation to talk about the possibility of a presidential pardon. But really, in the scheme of things, how likely would that ever be, given the fact that there really is no love lost between the two leaders, that is President Ramaphosa and Jacob Zuma?
President Zuma may as well apply for that presidential pardon to just throw a spanner in the works and pass over to President Cyril Ramaphosa, as you would say, over to you, Mr. President, as his political limits, to see what kind of decision the former president the president of the Republic of South Africa in the form of Cyril Ramaphosa would take on the issue of presidential pardon. Because if he fails to pardon him, that would further fuel the divisions in the governing party. By some would say that Cyril Ramaphosa is not a true cadre of the ANC in the form that he's failed to pardon the former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, and that he is serving other masters elsewhere, with some saying that he reports to Stellenbosch. That is the language of the RET. So the former president politically may decide to throw a through pass to President Ramaphosa in saying that I want a presidential pardon from you, Mr. President. If the former president Jacob Zuma does that application and President Ramaphosa fails to give him that presidential pardon, it would fuel those political divisions within the ANC, but also President Ramaphosa will have a conundrum that the opposition parties, particularly the Democratic Alliance, will say that he is being lenient on former President Jacob Zuma on the virtue that he is some sort of way being lenient to him because he is his comrade in the ANC, and Ramaphosa is trying to mend the divisions in the governing party. So, nonetheless, the president of the country and of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, will find himself with a difficult decision to make.
Very tricky territory indeed. Thank you very much, Samkele, for that report. Samkele Maseko reporting there.